What's up, guys? Welcome back to Channel Azure. I'm your host Daniel, joined today by no one because for this video I'm the only one that saw the movie because I am a self-loathing comic book nerd and no one else wanted to see it. And today we're going to be talking about Superman Red Sun, the newest adaptation in DC's animated universe, or the DCAU, whatever you want to call it. First, right off the bat, I'd say this film is actually pretty good in terms of depicting what the Red Sun storyline was about. If you guys don't know, Red Sun is basically about an Elseworld story. That's what it is, like an alternate timeline of what would happen if this changed or that changed for a comic book character. Now, Red Sun is probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous, because it deals with Superman, basically the world's most famous comic book character. So this part, he is actually from Russia in 1942, I believe, during the rise of the Soviet Union. Right, yeah, so the rise of the Soviet Union, 1942, 1946, around that time. He's born. He crash lands in Soviet Russia instead of, I think it's no. Damn it! Why am I forgetting where he's from? Smallville. There you go. Smallville. So instead of being raised by John and Martha Kent, he's been raised by some farmers, from beet farmers, I think, or corn farmers, grain farmers, whatever you want to call it. Either way, Soviet Russia, Superman. So the whole movie is done in a Russian accent and all that other jazz. And so for Beat, this storyline is actually a pretty faithful adaptation, though. Like, all the way from how Superman landed to who he's fighting against to how he comes to power. Essentially, though, there are some nitpicky parts. So, like, he in the movie he does kill Stalin, which does not really happen in the comics. And so also, what happens is that Brainiac also shrinks Stalingrad, but instead of taking it back from Superman, Lex kind of keeps it. And also another thing is that there's no twist ending at the end that Lex Luthor is actually Superman's ancestor from the past, which is also something that happens in the comic books. Another nitpicky part is that they kind of made, like, I don't want to say forced feminism type thing with Wonder Woman, but they did kind of exaggerate it a bit. Like, in the comics, she is a fairly powerful character, and she does manage to go toe to toe with Red Sun Superman. But in this one, she basically blames men for everything. Like, I mean, it's not terrible. I wouldn't change it if I had the choice to, but I mean, come on, kind of dial it back a bit. If you're trying to be a faithful adaptation, then yeah, like, keep it faithful. Another thing is, though, Lois Lane's part is actually pretty small in this role too. Like, they kind of reverse the roles in a sense with Wonder Woman and Lois Lane. Like, because in the comic books, Lois Lane is actually a pretty strong female character, and Wonder Woman is too, but just not as much. Another thing, though, too, is that there's no really infatuation between Lois and Superman in this movie, like there was in the comics too. Like, sometimes she does have fantasies about what would happen if Superman was born in the USA, where they end up getting married and everything. And this one, nothing really. She's basically like a diplomat, but like a boring diplomat. Yeah. Another thing, though, is that it's kind of like not really worth mentioning, but I kind of like didn't really get why it needed to happen. They made Jimmy Olsen black, like literally, they made him black. I'm fine with it. I didn't mind it at all. I'm just bringing it up because why make him black in the first place? Is it because it needs to be represented? I mean, it's a film set in Russia for the most part. I'm pretty sure there's representation all around. But other than that, I digress. Leave it at that. I would say, though, that Batman, Soviet Batman, he's probably the best character so far. Like, they did something different with his origins, which I kind of enjoyed, because in the comic book origins, is one of Stalin's like KGB officers that turns him into Batman by like killing his parents. But in this one, Superman finds him in a gulag, which is basically like a Russian work camp, and he basically resents Superman because he makes a comment saying, "You could hear a butterfly's wing flap all around the world, but you couldn't hear our screams from down below." And that actually gets you, because Superman does have heightened senses to that degree. Like, and the fact that he actually had that attention, brought that to him, it kind of hits you a bit. And then, like, you see like this whole like blank death stare in his eyes that, he wants revenge on Superman. Another thing too that I want to bring up is that for some reason people always bash on DC's animation. It's fine. Like, the animation's fine. It's not the best in the world. No, it's not going to be Disney level or anything like that. But I mean, like, for what it is and what people pay for it, it's fine. There's no need to change the animation or complain about it, because lo and behold, if they do end up changing the animation down the line, people will resent it at first. Yeah. Other than that, like, the animation is solid in the movie. Like, Another thing too, like the whole Green Lantern Corps is in it, but it's like kind of a different kind of way. Like it's still Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, and Guy Gardner, but instead of like them being in space, the space is basically a separate division of the U.S. Army. So yeah, another part of the U.S. Army that they did change was they made Bizarro Superman. Like if you guys don't know who Bizarro Superman is, basically the opposite of actual Superman. Like anything you say to him is basically translated to the opposite. So to him, big means small. To him, go means stop. To him, hero means villain, and villain means hero, which is why he's basically portrayed as a villain. And they made him like that. And so one thing is though that he's actually not a good guy in this movie, which is also different from the comics. And so yeah, he's actually supposed to be a good guy in the comics, and he does actually save the city of London from a missile. But in this one, he just fights Superman and basically just dies because Lex overpowered him to a degree where he can't handle it. And then he's all nonchalant about it, like him dying was just a test. Which in fact I could see. Like Lex Luthor, he's not really the bad guy, but he's also not the good guy you should be rooting for. The same thing with Superman. Like, he does pretty good stuff. Like he unites most of the world under communism and all that, and it actually works in this world. But he also basically does what Stalin did too. Like he doesn't do internment camps, but he does like give forced lobotomies onto people who are against him. He does kill for the majority part of the movie because he keeps saying like sacrifices need to be made, even though he told Stalin that people do not need to be treated like this, and he ended up killing Stalin for that. So in a sense, what this movie is trying to say is that in this world there really isn't no good or bad way of doing this, and that the whole good and evil is basically more of your opinion and your point of view. Because to Superman, what he's doing is good, but to the rest of the world, it's not. And to Lex Luthor, what he's doing for the U.S. is good, and to the U.S. is right, but to Superman, it's always just a futile attempt to save like a dying nation. So yeah. Other than that, though, the action scenes are pretty good. The dialogue is almost word for word, and so, yeah, the character development is actually on point. What I would probably like to see is that I would have loved to see the twist, like the whole twist, like because in the graphic novel they do actually explain how it came to be that Lex Luthor became his ancestor. That people took the name L from Lex Luthor, so it'd be like Jor-El, Con-El, all like that, and then there you go, Kal-El, which is Superman. And so what they did instead of shipping off into space, the spaceship basically rotated around the Earth like in Superman 1 in the 1978 movie, and went back in time to when the sun was yellow, because at that time the sun was red and no one had powers. So yeah. Other than that, the film was pretty enjoyable. I'd probably watch a sequel to it if they ever made one to it, which I know is not going to happen either way. But yeah, I'm looking forward to more DC Animated Universe content, most especially Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. That one I know that's probably going to be really good. Alright, that does it for this episode. Thank you guys for enjoying, and hope to see you next time.